I made this jig just to help me make bricks, but I put notches in this right here, so I wouldn't hit the wire. But this one I'm making a little bit thinner, so my jig really doesn't help. So I don't want to go all the way to the end and hit the wire, because then I'll break it. Because I know that, because I've already done that once. But I want these thinner so they don't really stand out much on the board. These are just square pieces. To create the dents and dings in these, I just use a rock bin, shake it around, well, throw the tiles in, shake it around, and get them beat up so they have all the little dents and cracks and things like that. And because these are thinner, they will crack and break, but that's okay, because for what I want, that's fine. I have these thin so they don't rise too much off of the surface of the game board. That way it doesn't interfere with terrain that's been placed. But this works really well for making dents and dings in it. And this technique I got from Black Magic Craft quite some time ago. That's what he does. But it's very useful in creating bricks and digging them up. Now I'm just using some Turbo Tacky glue to glue some squares down. I did go across this whole thing and make a grid pattern so I can keep the squares aligned no matter where I place them. So if I place them somewhere further down the board, I can use the grid pattern to make sure they're all lined up to, like, this was one giant tiled section, if I can even talk this morning. And then if I just want to do, I can just tear them apart like that, do whatever. But essentially go through and do this whole thing like this. I'm just going to do it in random patterns. So what I'm doing now is I'm just putting sand in here, and this sand has been sifted through a strainer just to get all the larger pebbles out. And I'm just going to do like you would if you were grouting tile, and just kind of moving some of the grit in here into the seams of this, just to fill in the gaps, make it look more like it's a tile system. I don't care if I sweep down a little bit and kind of move it down a little bit like that. And just doing this, I'm going to do this over the whole board, and then we'll spray it and glue it down. This is 99% alcohol, and this is a mixture of 1 part Mod Podge, 3 parts water, and 1 drop of dish soap. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to moisten up this with the alcohol so the mixture of soap and glue adhere better. And then just sprinkle this on. This is just to basically set. I do plan on going over this whole thing with Mod Podge, but I want to set this up first with this stuff so it seeps in. And then just take my brush and go over top. So it makes all the grouts and everything. Gets all the, so it makes sure all the grout and everything gets all the glue. I'm using some Mod Podge now to kind of seal the table a little bit, or I should say the board. It's not quite 50-50, I just put some water in it to dilute it. I just want to firm up the tiles mostly, because everything between the tiles is going to have sand in there and glue, so it's going to firm that up anyway. So now I'm just kind of putting it over the entire table, just to firm everything up a little bit more. I'm just using some Elmer's glue to apply this sand to all the gaps in between all the pavers that I put down. And I just put it down, now I'm just moving it and squishing it around to all the edges, and then after that I'll put some sand down. It's just normal playground sand. This one I haven't sifted it through any type of a strainer, so it has all the various sizes. And actually this one I just purchased I actually like, because it has smaller grains than playground sand I've bought in the past. But after I just do this, just push around to the sides, I'm just going to put some sand down. And then the sand I've already placed, it may absorb too much, or sorry, I may have a lot of glue there, and I can start to see it come through the sand. And when that happens, I'll just put more sand down and so it has more sand. That's all. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, you kind of get the drift. But now I'm just doing this, and then I'll let it dry over time, and then we'll figure out a way to remove it all. I've watered down some chocolate brown, and just to make it so it flows easier and it's easier to paint and get into the crevices and everything. But now I'm just going over all this. I'm just going to paint this base sand color of chocolate brown and go from there. This part is somewhat time consuming just because it's going to be dry brushing all the brown area or the gravel area. And just put some paint on your brush, remove most of it, and dry brush away. You're not painting it, you're just getting the top surface of this, and This is the first one. This is raw sienna is the color. And just go through and dry brush the whole thing. It's a little time consuming, but in the end it'll be worth it. This is sandstone, and I'm just doing the final highlight. I've already started. Sometimes I'll do more, but since it's such a huge piece, I'm not going to. And I want to use the side of the brush just because I want it to be a final highlight, and I don't want it to do mask coverage, so I'm not doing a lot of paint on there. But just, this will be my final one, and then I'll go to the flagstones. This is just a tan color that's been watered down a tad, just make it easier to spread over top of this. This will be the base coat before I do anything else to these tiles. This is the original color of the sand or the dirt, and I just turn it into a wash. And now I'm just going over the pavements with it. And nothing major, just mix some water with it, got it to the consistency I wanted it, and now I'm just covering these. This is just a sea green color, and it's really thin wash, and I'm just going over all the tiles just to kind of give them a different hue. I don't want to have everything so brown as far as the tiles are concerned. I want a little bit of color. I'll probably might do one more wash on this, but we'll see how it goes. This is the color I'm using so far. If it gets thick like that, I just dip my brush in water and dilute it. And then I'll come back, and if it's too thick, then I'll just dab it and remove it and move it to another one. You can obviously keep going and doing more colors and more colors and more colors if you want, but this is sandstone. This is my final dry brush, and I'm just going through and just dry brushing parts of it. In some areas I'll hit a little bit lighter just because all stones aren't alike as far as that's concerned. But you can do it one gigantic dry brush and not worry about that kind of detail. But this is going to be my final dry brush, and then I'll go to static grass. And I did do a little bit of terracotta. As you can see, there's a lighter color. I did go through and just randomly dry brush some terracotta on some random stones. Not full on, just here and there, just to give it a bunch of different color. How's it going? I hope you got something out of this. One thing I didn't video, obviously, is the flock, or the grass, the static grass. But I figured, and it's just an application, but it was in a random nature. I didn't do a lot of coverage because the one thing I need to keep in mind when I have this board is that there's gonna be terrain on it. So the static grass doesn't need to be heavy, because you can have terrain pieces that'll have a lot of static grass if that's what you want. Or if you want barren pieces, then you don't have a lot of static grass to make it look like it's not barren. But one thing is I did put, obviously from the pictures you can notice there is static grass in the cracks of the tile work. And one thing I didn't like that I thought about fixing, but I just didn't want to, just because I don't care. And that was the creases, or the grout, the places where the tiles meet, and there's a little bit of grout in there. Anyway, that kind of got lost a little bit, but in some tile work it does get lost. You don't really see it because they match it. There's a lot of contrast. So I thought about that. That's one of the reasons I really didn't care on that one either. But if you have any questions, comments, you can feel free to leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them as best as possible. If you want to see more pictures of what I do or what we do on this channel, you can go to Platypus Scotsman on Instagram. And we also have a Facebook page, Platypus Scotsman Lounge and Platypus Scotsman. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, you can friend me at Platypus Scotsman. I do have an account there, and that's what I do As far as Facebook is concerned, because I do have a personal account, but I kind of like to leave that to, I don't know, just kind of like to leave that separate from my hobby stuff. Just kind of push it away. Anyway, I'm going to start building some terrain for this, but I do need to get back to some other things that I have already done and start finishing. I didn't quite wrap up a lot of things like the church and other stuff, and I also need to paint the hyper matter reactor. I haven't. Be honest with you, it kind of scares me a little bit because it's like, I put so much effort into doing it, I don't want to screw up the paint job. So, but I need to suck it up and paint that piece because it needs to be done. It's a cool piece. That's where I'm at, and I say anyway a lot, and you just have to, it is what it is, man. Anyway, you have a good one. You have a good night. Good day, whatever it happens to be, and I hope your hobby is treating you well, and say hello to your loved ones and those around you, and be happy with what you do in your hobby, no matter what you want out of it. So it's the most important thing. Anyway, remember what my mother used to always say, that anyone can do art. You have a good one. Bye. See ya on the flip side.